Here on the ground, change happens fast. Problems feel frequent and urgent. It's loud and anxiety runs high. From a satellite view, the Earth looks the same as it did thousands of years ago. We've been here before. Let's learn from our past and shoot for a better future.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of A Satellite View. I'm Todd Mikkelson, your host, speaking at you from Sunday, March 30th, 2025, in the space and time continuum. And we're definitely going to be kind of pushing past a lot of the headlines that you know of. And we're going to do what we're going to go back in time. We're going to rise up to a satellite view and look back down and see the big picture of things. It's extremely frustrating, maddening, and even scary to get too caught up in the chaos that Trump and Musk and Putin and others want you to feel. They want you to be confused and scared. The IRS is completely in shambles. Yet we put our taxes in, we do them early every year, and within a week we got our tax return back. Okay, which one is it? I don't know. We don't know. It's hard to even know what's going on. USAID is in shambles, but a judge has ordered them to replace everybody and all the funding. I guess that hasn't happened yet. It's going to happen. It's supposed to happen. It's scary, and a lot of people are being affected by it. I realize that. But we need to go up to the big picture. Now, I want to point out a couple stories. This bulletin not in. In the United States, it's not being reported on whatsoever that there was apparently an assassination attempt on Vladimir Putin. It's being reported in many news outlets, the Daily Star, the Sun, which is British, the Deacon Herald, a bunch of news outlets, none of them American, are reporting. Now, there is video of a limousine that is one of Putin's limousines. He wasn't in it. I don't even know if he was near it, but a $300,000 limousine, he's got a bunch of them that make up his motorcade, whatever. It blew up on a busy street. People were in restaurants. There's video, there's photos, there's witnesses. The car is damaged on both the front and back. Apparently a fire started under the hood, and then the car blew up. But it's being very tight. You can't find a lot of information about it in the United States. You got to go elsewhere. Some places are trying to say, was it an assassination attempt, or this is a false rumor? But there's clearly a lot of evidence that it is a Vladimir Putin limousine. It's like a block from their intelligence building. This bulletin not in. Big explosions in Russia. Let me find this. Okay, this is from Anka Daily News, and there's video. If you're watching this, so the podcast comes out on Sunday nights. I disseminate it to a bunch of people on Monday late afternoon. Then later on Monday night, we release the full video on our YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube and put in A Satellite View podcast, you can find it, and you'll see me playing this clip. There's a lot of video behind it of this fire and explosions that happened in a major oil depot, they call it, a major oil depot. It's a big part of the infrastructure of Russia and the energy that they need to use in order to do a war and their economy. It's the second attack in so many days. And it's a pretty big deal. And it's not reported in the United States. I'm going to play you this clip.
The warehouse is said to have contained 100,000 tons of fuel, one of the most important factors that added to the destructiveness of the explosion. Russian media claim that Ukrainian drones were behind the attack, while the Kremlin remains silent. What is striking, however, is that this attack took place at a time when the US, Russia and Ukraine were working on the technical details of a ceasefire on energy infrastructures. It seems this attack not only set fire to a fuel depot, but also to a possible diplomatic settlement process. Who was behind the scenes of the attack? Could this drone attack on the oil depot have been part of a larger plan and not just an ordinary sabotage attempt? Sources close to Russian military intelligence suggest that Western special military forces supporting Ukraine may have been behind the attack. On the other hand, the Kyiv government has not claimed any responsibility for this attack. However, Ukraine has previously carried out attacks on fuel depots deep inside Russia. Such attacks are considered a critical strategy to hit the logistics lines of the Russian army and weaken its combat capacity.
All right, you heard there a few things. First of all, sabotage. Apparently, there's a lot of sabotage going on conducted by Russian citizens or Russian military. I don't know. Somebody inside Russia. They have a lot of sabotage attacks. Russian media is claiming this was an attack by Ukraine. Again, everything's unclear. But why do we not get reported here in the United States when these things happen, where Russia's getting their ass kicked, apparently, in this war? And people are trying to kill Vladimir Putin. One thing I forgot to mention in the assassination of Vladimir Putin, before he did put a wreath at their unknown soldier place they have there in Russia, they had a bunch of military guys there lined up, supposedly the guard, right? But a federal security team for Vladimir Putin did an individual body search of each soldier. There's video of that. You can find it. It's not that hard to find, but it's not being reported on in the United States. They also made all the soldiers empty their magazines in their guns, and they plugged the barrels of the guns. This is how nervous they are that somebody in Russia wants to assassinate Vladimir Putin. Now, he's always been known to be paranoid, but, so we're going to put a pin in that Vladimir Putin, people are seemingly trying to assassinate him. He's also there are reports of him not being in good health. And Russia itself is falling apart. Again, hard to find that in the United States news, but easy to find it elsewhere. Their economy is decimated. They're in really bad shape. The people are against Vladimir Putin. They do not want Russia to be at war with Ukraine. And Ukraine seems to be doing well. And like you heard in this report, there are people in Russia who think that this is a Western alliance attack. And we're hearing about the Western alliance. Kind of thinking, okay, Donald Trump's not on our side. We need to do this ourselves. So NATO, other nations, not us, are getting together to try and defend Ukraine. So let's keep that all in mind, that Russia and Vladimir Putin are on extremely shaky grounds, yet the title of this video and podcast episode is, they're all Russian asshats. Let's go back in time to 2018, the 4th of July, the Independence Day of the United States. A group of Republican senators visited Moscow to deliver a warning to Russian President Vladimir Putin not to meddle in midterm elections. Well, why were they afraid of that? Okay, so I'm going to read you part of an interview that Mary Louise Kelly, a host on an NPR show, was interviewing a Representative Jerry Moran. It's Moran. I'm going to pronounce it Moran. Jerry Moran. It's probably Moran, but it's like, you know, those cartoons where it's like, what a maroon. So it's Jerry Moran. Jerry Moran. So Moran says, good to be with you. Thanks for the opportunity. And, you know, she introduces it as he's fresh from Moscow. This happened, I think, on the 6th of July. Vladimir Putin made these guys go to Moscow for the 4th of July. They say they went there to give him a harsh warning. Okay, let's go into this. Kelly, the interviewer, I want to ask about this trip to Russia and the central reason for it. I gather which was discussing Russian meddling in U.S. elections. I wonder, what was your exact message on this? Moron. Well, the conversations had a number of topics, but clearly the issue of meddling in U.S. elections was front and center. The point of the visit was to indicate a willingness to begin dialogue. I think the interest in many of us, particularly as a Republican delegation, my view is that for Russians to hear that Republicans from the United States Senate believe that meddling occurred, that it needs to stop. And that's a component criteria before blah, blah, blah. He goes on with some moronic stuff. But that pretty much sums up the fact that, first of all, no Democrats went to Moscow for the 4th of July weekend. I think there were 8 Republican elected officials, 8 Republican Congress people. I think they were all men. Not sure. I think they were all men. Went to Moscow for the 4th of July weekend in 2018, just a little more than a year after the Trump regime first time in office. Now, he says here that Russian meddling in our election occurred. What have you been hearing Republicans say? So this is going back in time to July 6th, 2018. All you've heard is that, you know, the Russian hoax is what you hear these guys say now. The Russian hoax. Okay. Well, in 2018, you went to Moscow because Russia invaded our election, right? Right? Now, let's go back in time to 2016, when Hillary Clinton called Tulsi Gabbard a Russian asset. Now, I'll call Tulsi Gabbard a Russian asset because she's a lot smarter than these other asshats, all right? A moron that we just, he's an asshat. She's an asset. She's a lot smarter. Let's go back to the summer of 2015. 3 Syrian girls who had narrowly survived an airstrike some weeks earlier stood before Tulsi Gabbard with horrific burns all over their bodies. Gabbard, then a U.S. Congresswoman on a visit to the Syria-Turkey border as part of her duties for the Foreign Affairs Committee, she was in Congress at the time, had a question for them. This is Tulsi Gabbard asking these girls, how do you know it was Bashar al-Assad or Russia that bombed you and not ISIS? Now, she asked that according to, I'm going to get his name wrong, Maouz Mustafa, a Syrian activist who was translating her conversation with the girls. It was a revealing insight into Gabbard's conspiratorial views of the conflict, and it shocked Mustafa to silence. He knew, as even the young children did, that ISIS did not have jets to launch airstrikes. It was such an absurd question that he chose not to translate it because he didn't want to upset these girls, the eldest of whom was 12. Mustafa told The Independent, you can't find this news in America, Mustafa said, from that point, I'm sorry to say I was inaccurate in my translation of anything Tulsi said. It It was more like, how do I get these girls away from this devil? Even before Gabbard left the Democratic Party, ingratiating herself with Donald Trump and secured his nomination to become Director of National Intelligence, where she is now. She was known as a prolific peddler of Russian propaganda. I'm not going to go through all those details, but there's a lot. And Mitt Romney, who in 2012, let's go back to 2012, during the election when he was running against Barack Obama, a lot of people made fun of him for saying that our biggest threat right now is Russia. Me included, for making fun of him. Now, Obama knew what was going on and had a meeting during the election of 2016, reporting to Mitch McConnell and other leadership in Congress that Russia is doing this in our elections. They're meddling in our elections. Mitch McConnell said, well, as far as I'm concerned, that's just fine. All right, he didn't want to do anything about it because he wanted Donald Trump. If we go back about a month on this podcast, the one where it talks about a movie that I made up called Kreznov, I think is Trump's name in Russia. He is a Russian asshat. All right? Now, there's a couple things I want to do when we come back. I want to end it by talking about the real game that's going on here and how the tides are turning. But we have a little bit more of talking about the asshat portion, the Russian asshat part of this title. I'm sorry, it's going slower than I thought it was going to, but we have more information coming. And if you haven't noticed, I have not talked about the main headlines of the week. Yes, it's been less than a week since the whole Signalgate thing began. That began last Monday, after I released this show. It's frustrating because I'll put the show out on Monday night. By Monday night, all anyone was talking about was Signalgate. And my podcast was talking about what happened just a day before, but it's, almost seemed out of date. Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? Wow. Anyway, let's take a short break and come back on a satellite view. And we're back on a satellite view. If you like the music you're hearing on this show, go to toddmikkelson.com, push the music link, and you can find this and other music that I've written over the years. Also, go to my Instagram, @ToddMikkelson. I need followers. Follow me on Instagram and also on YouTube, our YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube and just put in a Satellite View podcast, you'll find our YouTube channel. You can find these shows now in their entirety on video, and you can see all the clips that I'm talking about. And I'm going to show a graphic here as well. But you're not going to see that if you're listening to the podcast. But thank you for listening to the podcast. I realize that's a convenient and easy way to listen in your car, wherever. But if you're interested in digging in further, go find the entire thing visually on YouTube. Let's get back to what we're talking about. I want to finish this Russian asshat thing. Now, I'll go back in time. I can't remember when I started talking about this, but I had a theory that many years ago, I think it was still during the first Trump administration, because for one thing, Mitt Romney did not run in 2016. He ran in 2018. So he wasn't part of the 2016 blackmail. I always thought Trump was blackmailing everybody. Why does Lindsey Graham, he hates Donald Trump, and he turned, all these guys, everybody hates Donald Trump. But they all, use part of his anatomy as a popsicle now on TV all the time. I'm like, what does he have on them? It seems like he's blackmailing them. And my theory always was, he pulls them one by one into the Oval Office. Illegal Russian money was laundered through your campaign in 2016. So you're going to do what I say. You're not going to go against me. Now, I think I had that right, but it's not him. He's being blackmailed by Putin. Now, we've all known that for a long time, too. Again, go back about a month or so on this podcast, and I'll go through the history of Donald Trump in Russia, starting with them putting his first wife in front of him in the late 1970s. And she worked for Russian intelligence on and off. She was also a model. All right. She brings Trump by 1987 to Russia. They capture him and they basically make him an asshat. What do they call it? I can't remember a useful idiot. Because they had stuff on him, because he spent 10 years with his wife by then. You know, he wasn't faithful in his marriage to her. Okay, I don't want to go in too many. Go back and listen to that podcast and you'll get that whole thing in detail. The history of Donald Trump in Russia. So now Donald Trump, they put him all the way up into the White House, and now he's blackmailing everybody else. So all these people, that's why I went back into 2018 and talked about those guys who went to Moscow over the 4th of July weekend, really? To let Vladimir Putin have it. Right. They're all being blackmailed by Russia. Tulsi Gabbard, I don't know even if she's being blackmailed or if she's like willingly working for them. She seems to be the smartest of the lot. The committee hearings after this Signalgate thing was amazing to watch. Of course, I watched them both in their entirety, hours long. I had them on in the background. I was doing work at my business. I didn't just sit there and watch. I'm not that unhealthily obsessed. But these people were lying. Tulsi Gabbard is so good at it. But, God damn it, what's his name? Radcliffe, the head of the CIA, he's no good at it. He's an idiot. Tulsi Gabbard, not an idiot. Radcliffe, I think his name is John Radcliffe, total idiot. He perjured himself numerous times, and you could tell that he wanted to throw up after he got grilled. He was like, oh, God, I blew that. And my prediction is he'll resign, try and resign. I think some people are trying to resign and they're being told, you can't resign. You're in this for the duration. Now, Pete Hegseth, a big focus of this whole Signalgate thing, as you know. So I'm not going to go into detail about the whole Signalgate thing, assuming you know that story. Now, there's a guy, Pekka Kalaniemi. I'm not getting his name right, and it's a long name, so it doesn't matter what his name is. I'm going to call him Pekka, because that's his first name. He's somebody who the International Center for Defense and Security in Estonia credits as an expert on social media and disinformation. He posted this on X, which is Twitter. And it was in response to Der Spiegel, a report in Germany. Der Spiegel is the biggest German newspaper, and German intelligence has been looking into a lot of things. Okay, I'll read you Pekka's X post. Interesting article about how the Trump administration's security advisors' mobile numbers, emails, and passwords can be found in commercial databases and publicly available leaks. He then added, my question is, why does Pete Hegseth have a Russian email address? And then he posted this screenshot that I'm showing you on video, but I'll describe it to you if you're listening to the podcast. It is an email, phegseth@mail.ru. Mail.ru is Russia. RU is for Russia. In another ex-user's post, they remarked that upon attempting to initiate a recovery of the account, it displayed a partially obscured phone number that was Hegseth's phone number. The +7 Russian country calling code and ending in 83, they said. The email is linked to a Russian phone number. They also added that the data breach search engine, the email address displayed the same password as phegseth@alumni.princeton.edu. Hegseth graduated from Princeton University in 2003. That's a surprise. And at alumni.princeton.edu is an authentic email suffix for the institution. One user noted the purported password matched some publicly available information pertaining to the initials and birth year for Hegseth's first wife. So they have the phone number correlates with these other things, passwords of this and other of his email addresses correlate with his first wife's birthday and initials. That's who he would have been with back in, pre-2003. I don't know how many wives he's up to now. So, Russian phone number, Russian email under Pete Hegseth. Are all these people working for Russia? The whole Signalgate thing, a lot of people think, and I think it's going to be proven, that it was purposeful because they want Russia to know what's going on. One of the guys on the Signalgate thing, using his own phone, was in Moscow. Moscow is reading your phone. If you're an American in Moscow, Russia is what they have a copy of everything that's going on in your phone. Hegseth knows it. I think Mike Waltz probably knows it. Mike Waltz being the guy who initiated this. He's the security advisor of Donald Trump. Some people say that he tried to resign and Trump wouldn't let him. Or Vladimir Putin wouldn't let him. But that brings us to something I want to finish out the show with, okay? The whole Trump administration is working for Vladimir Putin. They're trying to ruin the United States because that's what Vladimir Putin wants. How does Vladimir Putin operate? Chaos, 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 chaos. Everybody's scared and confused. The United States media, owned by corporations who don't want Trump to take anything away from them. So they're all using part of his anatomy as a popsicle. They're not reporting on the fact that Russia's getting their ass kicked in this war and that Vladimir Putin, apparently everybody's trying to kill him. So in the United States right now, we have chaos that's very much like Russia. Horrible stories about people being pulled off the streets. I'm sure you know about those stories. I'm not going to go into that. I want to talk about the big picture here. Let's go up. Let's get out of the chaos. How do we turn against this? The power of the people. Right now in Florida, the Republicans think that they might lose an election. In fact, Democrat Josh Weil is at 44% to Republican Randy Fine 41%. The Democrat is ahead in a district that Trump won by 30 points in Florida. In Pennsylvania, in Lancaster County, this has already happened. All right, last time a Democrat won there was in 1889, and the Democrat won. Susan Crawford running in Wisconsin this Tuesday's election. Also, this Florida election is on Tuesday. But for Susan Crawford is up 8 points to keep the Wisconsin Supreme Court liberal biased, even though it's supposed to not be a biased sort of thing. Also, frustrating things. Trump says he never heard about 4 soldiers dying in Lithuania, and he couldn't care less if car prices go up. This happened just this morning. All right. That's part of the chaos. I don't want to be in the chaos, right? I happened upon an interview this morning with Mallory McMorrow, who is a state senator from Michigan. She's kind of a star. She did a speech about women's healthcare rights years ago that went viral, and she's been kind of a rising star in the Democratic Party since. I think she's going to run for the United States Senate in Michigan coming up here. She has to make a decision, I think, within a month. She was on, and she got started when she was, young, like I think late 20s, 30-ish years old. She said, I did a Google search on how to run for office. She was frustrated about the whole Trump thing. She got into it by Googling, how do I run for office? And she took step by step by step. That's how you do things, one step at a time. She ended up becoming a state senator in Michigan. She turned a red seat blue, and now she's a rising star. She's very good at speaking, and she points out the Republicans for years, what they do is they run the same playbook. They tell you that you're not doing as well as you want to be doing, but it's not your fault. It's somebody else's fault or something else's fault. Right now, the government is corrupt, so Elon Musk has to come in and fix it. You're not doing as well because the government is corrupt. Even though Elon Musk is the big boogeyman that they always accuse the Democrats of having, a super rich person who's funding political things. He's totally doing illegal things in Wisconsin right now in that election I just mentioned. Now, what's been happening is people are starting to do this. When I decided to run in 2011, somebody said, hey, the seat's open, and I thought, I can't run. Can I? And they're like, yeah, you can. You're a small business owner. You would do well. You're very well spoken. You're good at messaging. A very red district I ran in. I got my ass handed to me, but I brought the numbers up by 9 percentage points. The DFL here, which is the Democratic Party in Minnesota, thought I ran one of the best campaigns. At least I had the best results in the state, even though I got my ass handed to me. Nobody else brought up the numbers by as much as I did. As much of an improvement from red to blue. It started a movement in my district. I ran again and lost. I did better, but I still lost because it's a very red district. Now, it culminated into getting more and more people involved in this district, in my district, my red district. When I used to go to district committee meetings, it would be me and maybe 2 other people. And now it's like packed. It's jam-packed. People are very involved here, and we elected Kelly Morrison first to the Minnesota State House in 2018. She won again in 2020. Then she ran for the Senate in 2022, the state Senate, and won. And then she ran for the U.S. Congress in 2024, and she won. She's the first Democrat to have ever represented this part of Minnesota in the state legislature. I feel like I played a big part in that by getting people involved in the first place when nobody was involved. I talked Kelly Morrison into running her first time. I'm very proud of that, and that to me is my role. Now, my mom is 83 years old. She's been on the council of her association of the neighborhood she lives in for more than 10 years, and she's just this side of testifying at the state capitol because the Republicans are trying to pass a law that's going to mess with what she's involved in. I don't need to go into details. But that's how involved she's getting. My friend Doug, who I mention on here a lot, I didn't catch all the details, but in his city, his wife thought this referendum they were trying to get passed, there's no way it would pass. It's a referendum, the city trying to invest in something they need, which Republicans are always against. Doug and his wife felt like it's too red. We have nothing but red around us. This referendum's not going to win. They went and stood on the streets holding signs on Election Day anyway. They got involved. Doug ended up talking to a city council member. He assumed all the city council members were maggots. But this guy actually sees everything the same way Doug does. He said, this guy has the same viewpoints I do. We talked for over an hour. It was great. Doug, he describes himself as somebody before Donald Trump came in. He didn't follow politics at all. He was more of a normal person and less of an unhealthily obsessed person like me. And now this is how into it he's getting. He and his wife are going to the hands-off protests that are going on nationwide, and I think even more than that. But I know nationwide because it's hands-off, Social Security, hands-off Medicare, and it's on the 5th. And they're going to the protests. They want to walk the streets with the protesters. That's how involved they're getting. One person at a time, one step at a time. Mallory McMorrow, that's what she says. She was one person. She thought, I don't know what to do. I'm going to run for office. That's what I did. My mom got on the council of her, she was like, I don't like how this is going. What should I do? She got involved. And now, one by one, people are scaring the crap out of Donald Trump and all these Russian asshats. They're scaring the crap out of Vladimir Putin. Now, I want to end by saying, what you can do is go to a protest, write letters, call your elected officials. Just do one thing. Give them money. Vote. If that's the only thing you do, have it be vote. But the power of the people is rising. You know how they overthrew the monarchy in France in the 1790s? Power of the people rose up against them. There was a revolution. The people took back their power. We have the power. Mallory McMorrow, she knew she was only one person. She knew she could only maybe do one thing. She started, and now she's doing more and more and more. Kelly Morrison is so effective. She's a star. She passed more bills in the Minnesota legislature than anyone else in a time when you couldn't get bills passed because the legislature was, you couldn't get anything passed, and she got more bills passed than anyone else. She passed, I don't know, like 34 bills in a session where you couldn't get bills passed. And now she's doing it in Washington. She's getting bills passed in Washington. And you know what Washington's like right now. You can't get bills passed in Washington. Kelly Morrison is. She's inspired a lot of people to get more and more involved. She's inspired candidates. You know, I might have inspired a couple candidates. I maybe helped her get started. She's inspired candidates that are way better than I was here in this red district. That's how we break things. That's how we break through. Yeah, you're only one person. But again, like I said last week or the week before, you know, the big fish coming after the little fish. But then all the little fish get together and they make a shape of a bigger fish. And the big fish has to turn around and run away because the little fish are going to eat him. That's Donald Trump. That's Vladimir Putin. That's the Republican asshat party right now. I'm not even going to call them maggots anymore. I'm going to call them Russian asshat party. All right? Power of the people is scaring the crap out of them right now. That's why Elise Stefanik got her nomination to be the ambassador to the UN pulled. That's how scared they are. Man, is she pissed at Donald Trump. She hates him too. But she's been using part of his anatomy as a popsicle for the last 8 years, hoping to do something like get nominated for the ambassador to the UN, which she was. And then he pulled her nomination because he wants her to stay in her seat. And if she runs in 2026, she might lose. I think a lot of Republicans are going to lose in 2020. We know that's going to happen. Anyway, I could go on all day, but I'm talking to you. I'm just one person. You're just one person. Together, we're two people. And if we each bring two people, okay, that's complicated math I can't do right now. I haven't had enough wine. Anyway, this was another week full of chaos. I think I'm starting to shift to being more and more of the satellite view because there's so much to report on. And I know what you're hearing in the United States media. So what I'm going to try and do is find out the things that you're not hearing about, like I did this week, about things going on in the war in Ukraine and Russia and what's going on with Vladimir Putin. And when Vladimir Putin falls, which he's going to very soon, it sounds like, what's going to happen to the Republican Russian asshat party? There's going to be no Russia for them to be asshats to anymore. Asset, of course, you realize the joke I'm saying there. It's getting very interesting. Where's Trump going to be when Putin's not there to tell him what to do anymore? It's getting very interesting. And again, I'm feeling very optimistic about our future because we are rising up as the people. It's a revolution that we have going on right now in the United States. MAGAs are turning against Donald Trump and the Republican Russian asshat party. They're doing it in droves. And it's scaring the crap out of the dark powers of the world. Europe's already figuring it out. Mexico already has their Kamala Harris. We're going to get ours. Somehow or another, we're going to get ours. And right now, we're working on it. We've started a revolution. You and me. By being involved. You listening to this. Educating yourself on how to argue against MAGAs, if there are any left that you know. I've gotten rid of any that I would have had in my life. But anyway, again, I'm going on and on and on. Thank you so much for listening to me yammer. You've been listening to A Satellite View, and I'm so grateful for you spending the time to do so. We will speak at you next week.
You've been listening to A Satellite View with Todd Mikkelson. Go to toddmikkelson.com for links and more information.